they will go on to the runoff in May. Yeah. The same thing is true of every position that we have coming up in this election, whether it's a constitutional officer or it's for the city council. If you have, for example, in District 14, at the moment, there are 5 Republicans and 1 NPA candidate. If 2 of those candidates, the top 2 vote getters, nobody gets the majority if the top 2 vote getters are both Republicans, they'll go on and face each other at the second election. And the majority is 50% plus 1 vote. Plus at least 1 vote. Yes. So that's important to remember. Frequently, I've had people contact me in the past about these elections and say, well, I'm not going to go vote in it because there's nobody from my political party who's running for those offices. And I'll say, no, that is incorrect. You are, in fact, allowed to vote for that because all of us are voting for all of these candidates. Right, right. And that's a great, very important point that I missed. And it's a unitary election in the primary and in the runoff. You could have any party in the runoff, 2 of one party or another, and so forth. It's really a little more work for the voter because you have to get to know the people of more than one party, perhaps, to really know who to vote for. If in a case of the 2 candidates in a primary or the primary, you know, 1 will be the winner, and then there's no general. Well, or yes, I mean the first round will determine who wins if there are only 2 candidates for that office. So it's theoretically possible that there would be no election in May, that we could decide all of these positions in March. That seems extraordinarily unlikely, however. Won't happen. So anyway, we have just a minute or 2 left as I figure it, and do either of you have anything more to offer, or the viewers? I certainly want to thank the viewers for sticking with us, and we'll be airing Thursday at 7:30 p.m. generally, and looking forward to future shows. And I hope you enjoyed this look at the 2011 elections without getting too much, perhaps, but it's an important job as a voter. Well, at this point, the concerned taxpayers of Duval County have not endorsed any candidates. We do anticipate that between now and our next show, we may very well have endorsed some candidates. By that point, we should have a finalized slate of candidates because our next show in January will take place after qualifying for these elections. Right. Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to mention we do have a member running in District 12. I don't know whether we're endorsing him or not, but since we all generally stand behind Joe Andrews, I think. Well, I think it's fair to note that Joe Andrews is in fact running for City District Council 12. I mean, I can say also that Clay Yarborough, who received the first Friend of the Taxpayer Award from this organization 2 years ago, is an incumbent who is running again in City Council District 1. There are a number of incumbents. 10 of the people that are eligible to run again are in fact running again. So we haven't identified those incumbents as we went through this. Personally, I don't think that an incumbent should have any particular leg up in a race simply because they're an incumbent. So we're beyond what we just identified by way of incumbency. We won't identify anybody else at this point, but it's easy enough to find out. I think we have to look at some of the ironies in our elections. You know, number one, usually the person with the most money wins, and we don't necessarily want people who can collect money from special interests to be working for us. They don't, you know, that doesn't seem like a good start for us as citizens who want to be represented by our people in government. But it is likely that they will go ahead and serve the interests of the people who gave them the money, not of the people that voted them in. So that's kind of an irony, and things like campaign reform, that's an attempt to, campaign funding reform is an attempt to mitigate that buying of an office kind of thing that goes on. Another thing is that a lot of people who run for office don't have experience in office. And at one point or another, I think we have to let some of those people in. If we say that our main candidate, our best candidate, is going to be somebody with experience in office, you won't get the kind of citizen representative, you won't get the part-time representative that we really deserve. I think there are people out there who have absolutely no experience in government, and they might be some of your best candidates. And with that in mind, I would point to the District 13 race, a familiar name to us, Dave Smith, running in that one too. So we shouldn't overlook him. And let's move on to something else. Do you want to talk about what the concerned taxpayers have been doing other than looking at next year's elections? We attend a lot of meetings of the various committees and the city council as a whole. Conrad, you're really outstanding in that particular area. What have you been up to down at City Hall?
I've been following for over the last year and a half the process of the attempt to reinstate the ethics code back into the city charter after 38 years of it languishing in this what I call a de facto status. We have a de facto ethics code that has very little chance of any real enforcement the way it has been, and it looks like we're on the cusp of finally getting it reinstated.
Okay, and there's some amending process going on. Some of the council members.
At yesterday's Finance Committee hearing, it was recommended that it go back to the main council with the amendment, the so-called Fussell amendment, being presented separately from the 4-page current pared-down presentation of what's recommended that the wording should be, so that the amendment can be considered separately by the full council. And I'm not sure when it's supposed to re-arrive back at full council.
Right.
There seems to be some delays in the process.
So if we want a strong ethics commission that has teeth, do we want the Fussell amendment or not? Or is it that simple?
The Fussell amendment is primarily aimed at how subpoena power would be used by the ethics commission, ethics officer, and it's still that's the primary focus is how and where it would be brought in from the other. The Fussell amendment would put it where it would be brought in from the other existing constitutional law.
That's all we have time for, Conrad. Once again, I thank you on behalf of the concerned taxpayers of Duval County, and we thank Comcast for making this show possible.